Howdy, y'all. Back today with not a comic book related video, but as a lifelong Beatles fan, a review of the 2019 remix of the 50th anniversary of the Abbey Road album. First off, I want to thank my friend Tom for hooking me up with the Super Deluxe Edition. Thank you, bud. Yeah. And I'm not going to talk about really all the extra material and all that kind of stuff because frankly, all the outtakes and alternate takes and all that, I have most of that stuff anyway. And the copies that I have were fairly pristine and all that. Not that I don't appreciate that the Beatles actually, put it out in pristine format and all, but I'm not going to talk about that except for one thing. I'll get this out of the way now. The most wonderful surprise of the entire set for me was the recording of George Martin's score with the orchestra for Golden Slumbers and Carry That Weight. It literally reduced me to tears. It was something that my whole life I had been desiring to hear, and now that I finally heard it, it just blew me out of the water. And here you go, Beatle organization, feel free to release a box set of the recordings of all of George Martin's scores. I'd be on that like white on rice, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But anyway, the meat of this video is to talk about the 2019 remix of Abbey Road. Now, I have to preface this thing by saying that I have been listening to Abbey Road for 50 years, since I was a little child. I've heard the album literally 1,000 times over the last 50 years, and I know what it sounds like in my head. So when I started listening to this 2019 remix, a lot of things just really leaped out at me instantly. And there's very little that distressed me. It's mostly good. Everything that I heard was mostly good, but I'm going to run through it song by song. I have just some notes here that I jotted down while I was listening. Generally, throughout the album, the nuances in the vocals were just amazing. I heard tiny little things, people shouting a word in the back or something. Hey, and I love those little nuances that kind of came out that were not part of George Martin's original mix of the album that I had never heard these tiny little nuances. They were edited out, I suppose, in that original mix. So I appreciated those little vocal nuances. There's a clarity and separation of all the instruments that is just brilliant, and it really does sound like you are in the studio with them. There's a clarity to everything, to every instrument that just comes through and really makes it sound like you're listening to it as it's being recorded. Come together. The vocals and the guitars are right up front. And again, well, actually, both the vocals and the guitars, particularly George's guitar, there are little nuances that you hear that you had not heard before. And I'm just happy that they did include those little nuances in this 2019 remix. I'm not going to say a lot about any of the tracks. I just want to kind of roll through them here to keep the video brief. Something. One or two of those vocal and guitar nuances I'm talking about. I was a little dismayed that the bass, Paul's bass, was as buried as it was. That's all I'm going to say about that. Maxwell's Silver Hammer, I didn't hear much different, anything much different, other than that super clarity. I have to call it super clarity, I guess, of all the vocals and the instruments and all that. But I didn't hear too much different in the overall mix. Oh Darling, yeah, major favorite of mine. Paul McCartney classic. But I have to put it kind of right there with Maxwell's Silver Hammer in that I didn't hear too much different going on from the original mix, other than that super clarity. Octopus's Garden, Ringo's vocals are boom, right up front. And you can really hear Ringo's double track in the portions of the vocal where Ringo double tracks the vocal. Boy, that really just smacks you. You can really hear that double track, and also the harmonies in the back. They're really out front too. They're really out front, and it makes for a lovely listening experience. I Want You, She's So Heavy. This is one of the major tracks on the album for me. The organ is out front and super crisp, and that's a very, very wonderful thing. It really just it was like I was hearing the track again for the first time. The separation of the guitars. John had that buzz going on, that distortion on his end, and it kind of bled into, to my ears, George's guitar bits. It's hard to separate the guitars within that distorted kind of range, but here each guitar is very distinct, and you can hear everything very, very distinctly. big issue for me here, though, is the loss of the backing vocals. They're very subdued in this 2019 mix, and that was a bit of a concern of mine. And finally, the white noise that begins to build and build and build and build and build in the final refrain of the song. It's not subtle at all. It's brought up more into the forefront. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that, because to me, one of the beauties of it was the subtle thing in the original mix. But now here in the 2019 mix, it's really brought up kind of in your face. And again, I don't like it or dislike it. It's just really different for someone like me who's been listening to the original mix for 50 years. Okay, flip the album, right? Flip the album for all you old people out there that get it. Here Comes the Sun. Overall, I didn't think it was much different from the original mix, other than, once again, that super clarity of each instrument, George Martin's score, the vocals, everything's super clear and it just meshed together perfectly. Because another one that I didn't really hear too much difference in the overall mix, again, other than that super clarity, which is a beautiful thing. That's fine with me. You Never Give Me Your Money. Okay. Unfortunately, this is where I'm going to sound a little bit critical, because the mix was definitely kind of way far off of what I've been listening to for 50 years. What it is, where is Paul's bass and where is the piano? What in the world? What? How? So if you're waiting to hear the thing with that lovely cushiony bass and the rollicking piano and all that up front, you don't get that here. And also the I suppose it's George playing the lead guitar, and that kind of runs roughshod right over John's rhythm guitar. It was brought out too hard, too much, again, for what my ears have been hearing for 50 years. So, and You Never Give Me Your Money is one of the three major things, three major tracks on this album for me. So I was really left kind of shaking my head like, ah, man. The Sun King. There are no subsonics in the bass. Again, if you want that lovely bass cushion, it's not there. Sure, you hear the bass, but you don't get the subsonic cushion. The organ, again, is out front, and that is quite lovely. Mean Mr. Mustard, not much difference in what I'm hearing. Again, but it's got that laser sharp clarity to each part. Okay, great. Polythene Pam, John's vocal is wham right up in your face. Yeah, but it subdues the harmonies. To my ears of 50 years of listening to Abbey Road, they were perfectly mixed. John's lead vocal and the harmonies were perfectly mixed. Now you get John, bam, and the harmonies subdued. She came in through the bathroom window again. The mix really isn't all that much different than what I'm used to hearing, but again, unfortunately, the harmonies are subdued. And here we get to the big meat of the album for me and for many other people. Golden Slumbers, right? The piano is subdued. I know you're thinking in your head, what? The piano in Golden Slumbers is subdued? Yes, it is. Unfortunately. The Redeemer is George Martin's score is way up front. You hear George Martin's score is right in your fucking head, right in your face, man. It's wonderful. The same thing with Carry That Weight. The piano continues to be subdued, but the vocals are wonderfully, precisely mixed. You have that great clarity of separation that runs through the entire album. But the piano is unfortunately a little bit buried. The end, great. And this is where that crystal clear separation of each guitar, the drums and the bass, everything is so beautiful in its separation. And there is a crispness that I hear in the drums that is spot on. And in the closing moments, when the orchestra swells again, it's right in your face. George Martin's score is right on top of you, man. It overwhelms you. It envelops you. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And finally, Her Majesty, there's not a whole lot you can really do with it anyway. Paul and his acoustic guitar, but there is that amazing crystal clarity of it. So there is my review of the 2019 Abbey Road mix. It was amazing to me to hear that the album went to the top of the sales charts in the US and the UK, which is an astonishing thing for an album that's half a century old. And for it to go to the top of the sales charts in the US and the UK, that's just amazing. So anyway, that's my honest long and short of the 2019 Abbey Road remix. As I said on some of my comments on other people's review videos, I didn't like it. I didn't dislike it. It was just different for me. Will I pull it out again in the future and listen to it? Sure I will. But in the ensuing years, when I pull out Abbey Road, I will be pulling out 9 times out of 10 the original mix, because again, I can't dismiss 50 years of hearing it. I can't just dismiss it. It doesn't work that way. But thank you again, Tom, for providing me with the Super Deluxe set. I love you, brother. I love you very much. And I hope you all get something out of this video. And we'll see you again later. Bye-bye.